Hi, folks. I'm going to do a few short videos to show you how I would go about setting up a pachachka. You're doing a pachachka on some topic related to memory. I decided I wanted to use some of my own um, objects and images from around the house so I could take my own photographs. So I walked around, I started looking at all the pictures that I had hanging on the wall, and I noticed that there were quite a few of them that had pictures of women in them, portraits of women or representations. So I thought that would be my angle. So what you want to have, you may need to focus your idea down from a more general idea to something a little more specific. So my first step was to take some pictures. I walked around the house, and you can see some of the pictures that I found. Some of them are photographs. Some are drawings, and this one here is a needlepoint that I did when I was in college. It's a picture of my grandmother. Um, this is an old family portrait. Um, So I took the pictures, and then I decided on an order. The most obvious order for something like this would be chronological. So I transferred the pictures from my um, cell phone to my computer, and put them in a folder that I just called Pics for Pachachka. Um, I titled them so it'd be a little easier to find them if I just had the names of the files. And then I used a number at the beginning, which is the order that I would like to put them in. And then that puts them in this order. I sorted by name, so it puts them in the order I wanted to put them in the final product. So that makes it a little bit easier for me to kind of keep track of what's going on. My next step was to look for some sources. You need at least three sources that connect to the idea in your pachachka. Um, for some of you, this will be straightforward if you're doing a research-based sort of thing on ways different cultures memorialize the dead, or there are a number of people, several people doing something on CTE, that chronic whatever the football player concussion issue with memory. But it's a little bit more challenging if you're using personal photos. I found a couple though, because I had that needlepoint that I'd adapted from this Picasso painting. That was an obvious source of something that I might use a little bit of research for. So I found this publication that was done by the Museum of Modern Art, which is the museum that houses the painting. And I just want a little bit of snippet of something. I'm not going to have a lot of time to talk about it. I only have that 20 seconds. So maybe just a phrase or something that gives an interpretation of the painting or something like that is what I've got in mind. The other image that I thought had some research potential was the photograph of my grandmother, um, the black and white studio photograph. So it was taken, I don't know exactly when, I would guess in the maybe around 1910 or so. So I found this, I was looking for some information about old studio photographs, and I found this one, Why People Never Smiled in Old Photographs, which connects. Not a great source, but for the purposes of this assignment, you just want to find some usable sources. The point is to locate some sources, to get a little bit of practice doing some searches, and then more so to be able to put the sources into works cited format. So it's just really using the sources as a little bit of MLA practice for doing works cited. There's another one I found here that talked about composition of um, in family portraits, and it talks about painted backdrops. It looks to be a painted backdrop on the photograph I've got. So that is another one that I thought might possibly use. Okay, so once I've got my images and my sources, or at least a few sources, the next step would be to start the PowerPoint and start putting things together. Um, so we want to, what I'm going to do is get into Office 365 because that's something that I know all of you have access to. If you're familiar with Google Slides or something like that, I think that would be a workable way to do it as well. But just since this is something that we all have, and since many of you are probably familiar with PowerPoint. So to get to Office 365, I'm going to sign into Access BCC. And go here, and it's going to make me sign in again. Oh, no, it's not. I'm signed in. Okay. So I'll go to PowerPoint here and do a new blank presentation. I'm not a very sophisticated PowerPoint user. It took me a little while to find how to do some of these things. Some of you are undoubtedly better than I am. So I wanted to, and I'm just going to kind of sketch it in here. I'm not going to fuss around with the layout of this, which I probably would if I. So I decided to call this something like Preserved Portraits. It's kind of I'm not really crazy about the title, but. And then I'll put a subtitle here. Let's see, what did I call it? I think it was something like this. How women in my family live through art. Okay. And what I had done, I've done this already. I have another one set up that I'm gonna get to in the second slide. I picked one of these. I can't remember. I don't now see the one I picked before, so let me just take just something. I'm not crazy about the look of this, but let's take that. All right. You don't have to do that. And then there'd be some way to add your name. Probably you'd want to do that. I'm not going to bother with that either at this point. So I'm going to get a new slide, and I'll just get one that's blank. And I'm going to go over here, and I can just grab this one and put it on here. I want to make it as big as I can, so I go to these corners, drag these corners out, and then I need to center this. Okay, so I'm just going to go through and drop the, just get another new slide and drop the images one by one into the PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm going to break off now, and then I'll start again after I've gotten everything all together. All right, so be back in a second.